Welcome to the Heavenly Treasury broadcast where we help believers achieve God's financial abundance for your life. I'm your host, Ron Turba, author of the upcoming Heavenly Treasury series on biblical finance. First book is now in publication and we're working through it as we speak. So really excited about that. But today we're going to give you another great topic that's going to help you in your walk with life. Now, if you've been listening to me for any period of time, no matter how long it is, even if you've gone back and looked at some of my prior recordings on YouTube and the prior content that I've done, you'll notice that I talk quite a bit about you and your job not being the future that should be when it comes to walking in the financial abundance that is your birthright as a follower of Jesus. Yes, financial abundance is your birthright. You better believe it. Absolutely, it is. Jesus died for more than just your sins and your salvation. If that was just enough, that would be enough to follow him. But he died for a lot more than that. He died to break the curse of the law off of you, which part of that curse is poverty. So once you understand that and start realizing it and walking in it, you're going to live a very different life than you currently are today. And that's my goal with this broadcast, is to be able to give you some assistance in some way, shape, or form, particularly from the scriptures in the Bible itself, to be able to get you walking forward and say, wait a minute, the Bible has more than just Jesus dying. Oh yeah, it does. The Bible has more than just heaven? Oh yeah, it does. There's a lot more to it. And you may not realize this, but the Bible talks more about money than any other topic in it. Yes, that is correct. The Bible talks more about money than any other topic throughout the entire book. Yes, absolutely. In fact, some 3, 4, 5, 6, even 10 times more than some of your favorite spiritual topics is money covered. So that's why we cover it here, because number one, most believers, they don't get much financial education, or education may not be the right word, but financial chutzpah, so to speak, from wherever they're getting their spiritual food from, which again is a really crying shame, because there's so much great content in the Bible that can help you right now where you are today, no matter what you're going through, even if it's sickness and disease related. There's a lot more to this Bible than just most people give it credit for. And so that's one of the things that I like to do in this, is they kind of give you one of my business coaches calls it the wiggling the line, so to speak, when you hear somebody, okay? And you say, wait, is that really true? Really? Yeah, yes, things like that. And I know you've had those before, especially when it comes to maybe a political topic or something along those lines, where some activist or someone working for a campaign comes up to you and says, did you know da 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 da, right? Okay, so that's sort of the things that really got my attention was, wait a minute, the Bible has more than just sin and salvation and how I'm supposed to live. Yes, that is 100% true. And one of the things that I want to be able to do on this as a secondary effect of you walking in the abundance that you should be walking in is to say, wait a minute, if that's in there, maybe I need to start reading that a little bit more. Oh yeah, you do. That's for sure. And so that's one of the things that I like to do on here too, is to be able to get on there and say, wait a minute, there's more in the Bible than just what I'm hearing in church. Or wherever you're hearing it from. It could be an evangelist, a missionary, wherever you are. Wherever you're located, wherever you're watching this from, hats off to you. But yeah, that's something I really want to hone in on, is that, yes, the Bible talks a lot about money. And it talks more than just how much do we give. It's a lot more to it. Or what do I have now? How can I best steward it? There's so much more to that Bible than just giving and stewardship. And that's where I believe the Lord has called me into this area, to be able to provide that to you. Okay? I'm not here as a minister. I'm not a full-time minister. I'm a businessman myself. But part of my calling is to be able to improve the lives of other believers financially. And even if you're a non-believer right now, you're going to get assistance in a very different way than you ever have before. And hopefully that's going to spark your interest in saying, wait, maybe I should be serving that God that I felt wronged me 5 or 10 years ago because my brother died in a car crash. Okay? So there's a lot more to this than me just saying, okay, let's all get rich together. Nothing wrong with the abundance. Believe me, if there's anybody on planet Earth who's going to promote financial abundance and you living a wealthy and healthy lifestyle, believe me, it's going to be me over anybody else. That I can promise you. I also understand that everybody's definition of rich and abundance is very, very different. Abundance particularly means more than enough for you and plenty left over. Even after you've done everything you desire, there's more than enough left over. And some of your desires are not very big. But I'm going to tell you this, by the end of watching me, your desires are going to go infinitely higher. That I can promise you. So that's something I want you to focus on as well as we're getting through this. And one of the things that I talk about quite frequently is that a job cannot be your future financially. It cannot. Okay? And so a lot of you are in the same job that you've been in for even years. Even in this day and age with remote work, when you can just literally just go from one client or one assignment to another, to another, to another, to another, to another. You can do that with literally just a click of a button. All right? Even in that day and age, then just going around trying to look for the best deal for you for whatever that is, it's still not going to make it there. Because how many of you know that prices are rising significantly faster than your boss is giving you a raise? Amen. There's a solution for that. And it's not to just sell everything you own and go pray that you win the lottery. No. Okay? Believe it or not, there's actually inflation in the Bible too. You may not have heard that, but it is. I was actually reading it in this morning. It's in 2 Kings where there's a passage. I don't have it pulled up in front of me. I wish I did now that it comes to it. But there is a passage in there where it says by this time next week, or as of right now, there's a donkey's head worth about $400 and dove's droppings worth about $80. What does that mean? That's food costing significantly higher than it should. Why? Because that was the city at that time was being besieged, so they couldn't get supplies in and out. So of course, what happens when supplies go down? Price goes up. No basic economics, right? So whenever you take away a supply, price goes up if demand stays the same. And guess what? Everybody needs to eat, especially in a city when you're in a walled city. How many of you have been in an ice storm where all of a sudden the ice closed all of the roads around your city and you couldn't get any food coming in? What happened? Now, if economics was allowed to take place, putting society aside, those prices would start going through the roof. But they also know that if prices go through the roof 2, 3, 4 times because they can't get supplies in, what's that going to do for people, right? And so if we're in the wrong society, that would take a very, very different approach than you would like it to. So I do want you to understand that, yes, when you do have a place where roads and bridges and gates and all that stuff, you can't get in your city and supplies get cut off. Well, that happened in the Bible too. So and now in the Bible, they didn't really print a bunch of money the same way they are today. Every time they need more money, they just print it and you see the price at the grocery store as a result of that. So how do we get around that? Because a lot of the times, that's really what I see most of the times when I'm looking at financial news, especially whatever's going on in the world. I don't really pay too much attention to it because I focus on the Word of God, and the Word of God, regardless of the situation, is going to help you. It is. So that's something I really also want you to focus on is if all you're doing every single day is waking up thinking, oh my goodness, what did Joe Biden do today? Guess what? You're going to live a poor life. You are. Now, I'm not discounting what's going on in Washington and has done for the past 2, 3, 4 decades. Putting that aside, if that's all we're focusing on, then we're focusing on the bad things in our life instead of focusing on the future that God has for you. See? Now, that's another way that a lot of people get paralyzed financially is they're only focused on this news event or some echo chamber that there are in social media, and they don't think about anything else. They don't see any other option other than, well, life sucks, and I'm just going to watch my income just fade away because of inflation, because of some guy taking my job, all that stuff. So look, I'm not discounting that it's real. I do it. But at the same time, we have to understand that there are solutions that we can implement today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. So that's one of the big reasons why I put out a video on what to do if you're in a job and you don't want to be there. It's a 3-minute video on steps you can take today, practical and spiritual steps that will able to give you an outlet to say, okay, I want to move forward and not do what I've always been doing. So one of the things that as a result of that is once you do the steps that I outlined in there, the Lord's going to place an opportunity for you to not be in that job forever. Now, a lot of people will determine that as a side hustle or something like that. I don't really like that terminology simply because it basically says, well, I can't do what I want with my job. It used to pay. It doesn't pay anymore. So now I got to hustle on the side and basically take 15, 20, 30 hours a week outside of my normal job to just make ends meet. I don't like that, because the reality is the opening that the Lord is going to give you for whatever you're supposed to be doing is going to produce enough to out-earn whatever job you are if you continue motivating and going through it. So that's one of the things why I'm talking about today is mentorship. The last broadcast I did is why we do mentorship. And there's a lot in there that's really, really good, especially if you're a teacher right now, because I've outlined in that video how a teacher can go from 50 grand a year to 200 grand a year doing the exact same work. Now, it takes a different level of skill to do that, but I outlined in that steps that there's opportunities out there that maybe you're not seeing, and you think, oh, well, the only way for me to get a raise is to go to a better school district and get paid more. Not quite. Not quite. There's better ways for you to do that, and I outlined that in the other video. But for everybody else, I want you to understand that there are ways to accept mentorship that are biblical, because I want you to think about this right now. What job are you currently in? If you're in a job, whatever job that is, guess what? When you got in there, maybe some of you, if it's, I hate using the word entry-level job. I don't like that at all. But there are some jobs today that require very little, if not no experience, and very little, if none, skill sets. Very little. So if there is a job that requires no experience and no skill set, well, guess what? That job's not going to pay very much, but at the same time, they know that if somebody comes in bringing with them not very much with them, they have to be trained to be able to do whatever job you have. So let's say for the moment, waitressing is a good example. There are a lot of people right now that if you know nothing about any work whatsoever, you can get a waitressing job. So that is something where you don't need a lot of skill on your resume. And again, it takes skill to do that. I'm not discounting that, but what I'm saying is prior professional skills going into being a waiter or a waitress is not very high. So you don't need 15 years of experience in a restaurant washing dishes before you can go out and wait tables. Not quite. But what I'm saying is that once you get in there to be able to wait the tables and you're in and you say, okay, I'm going to work. What do I do? Guess what? You have to be trained. You have to be taught a lot of different things when it comes to skill sets in your industry. You're taught the menu. You're taught the closing and opening hours. You're taught the procedures when you go to get the food from the kitchen. All of that. So that in essence is job mentorship. Now, it's not mentorship that we talk about because the person training you is not very financially free. If you're a restaurant manager, not a general manager that kind of owns and operates the store, but I'm talking about a manager that oversees the waitress staff, the dish staff, the cook staff. Those people are not making 200 grand a year. They're not. They're not even making 100 grand a year. So for them to be your ideal role model of, okay, this is who I'm going to follow when I'm doing my work as a waiter, not quite. But that to be honest with you, that's job mentorship. Whoever your supervisor is providing you training of some sort. Now, it may be basic training, it may be complicated training. One of those things, you're still getting training in some way, shape, or form. Even if you're a doctor right now and you bring with you a lot of skills, a lot of experience, and a lot of education, there are still policies and procedures that you have to follow as a doctor at a hospital. You do. But that's the sort of mentorship that you're going to get in that specific place. So that's job mentorship. At the same time, if you think about it, if you're following somebody at your job with mentorship-wise, do they have the financial life that you want? Just think about that for a second. If they don't have the financial life that you want, then you've got to find somebody else to follow. Do you understand that? You have to find somebody else to follow. And one of the things that you are going to get when you move from a servant into a laborer is you're going to have an opportunity that doesn't have a cup with a lid on it with your boss saying you can only make this much. There's that too. So once you get to that point where you are now a laborer in the marketplace, nobody's in next to you saying do this, do this, do this. Nobody's instructing you what to do. And that's one of the big things that really stops people from getting to a place where they can accept mentorship is they're not in a place where they can earn the money that they would like to earn because they need somebody to just tell them, okay, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Almost like it's required that they're a soldier in the army. Every soldier in the army, you know exactly what you're doing at exactly the time and exactly who's leading you in that task. You know that literally 24/7, your entire second of the day. Every second of the day, if you're a soldier, how many of you have been in the Army or the Air Force or the Marines or any of those branches? Here you go. I have not personally, but if you have been, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're in the Marines, you know exactly what time you're waking up. You actually know exactly what time it takes to get you dressed in the morning. Some of you may only have 4 minutes to get dressed in the morning, but you know if you wake up at 4 in the morning, by 4:04, your butt better be on the floor and dressed, ready to go, because your DI is coming right behind you to tell you exactly what to do. So that's sort of the regimen that a lot of people are used to when it comes to a job. And it's one of the reasons why they don't like to get out of the job, because they're used to that. Okay, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this. And all of that comes through with that. So when you're a laborer, you don't have that. So unless you have the ideas already into you, and yes, the Lord can give you wisdom in those areas of what to do and what to do and what to do. He's done that for me and will continue to do that. But if you're requiring of the Lord literally every single day of, I don't know, Lord, how do I do business cards? If that's your prayer, you got to take a step up, because the Lord's He's gonna help you. He's not gonna carry you. Do you understand? The Lord's gonna help you in whatever your endeavor is, but He's not gonna carry you every single step of the way. So you take a step and you go forward and say, Lord, okay, I did this. Now what? Give me the next step. Give me the next step. I'm not talking about general life directions, okay? Of course, if you're a missionary right now and you're called to go to another country, you're gonna go. And if the Lord just says, go to this country, and you go to the country and you say, okay, Lord, what next? That's different than saying, okay, Lord, thank you for giving me this business opportunity I'm supposed to work in. Now I've done the business cards. Lord, how do I build a website? Like, come on, man. Listen, I love the Lord a lot, and He's done that to me too. He says, listen, I gave you a mind for a reason. Use it. I gave you a great mind. If you need wisdom, tell me. I'll give it to you. But listen, if you're trying to figure out what kind of pencils to use in your office because for whatever reason, and you're asking God that, no. Okay, so I want you to think about this for a second. When you are in that laborer position, you are going to have to take steps forward with your own life. I'm not necessarily in faith every single decision, but some and a lot of those decisions, yes, you are. So once you get to that point, you are going to need some guidance, because no matter who you are, you're going to be missing a skill set of some sort. Some of you are just fantastic salesmen. You could sell, I hate using the word sell ice to the Eskimos, but you could, because Eskimos don't need ice, so you don't need to sell them anything. But the reality is some of you are just so good that you could walk onto a car lot and that you've never been on before and just close the next 10 people who walked in with a car. You could do that. Now, for most of those people that I have met, they lack in the analytical skills area. They lack in the organizational area. So if that's you and you're great with people, and again, everybody should be great with people, but you are phenomenal with people, and you can build relationships, and you can build rapport, and you can just, they call it the gift of gab, whatever you got. Most of those people do not have great organizational skills, and you don't have to. You just need to know where to find it. So if you're just starting out as a laborer, more often than not, you're going to have to learn some basic level of organizational skills. How do I if I'm getting 50 emails a day, how do I filter those out and organize them? When clientele come to me, how do I figure out, okay, this person said this about their life, this is their desires, these are their goals, how do I help them with that? Keeping that catalog, so to speak. Some of you are really, really poor at that. And that's okay, because you have great skill set over here. That's where you have to be able to accept mentorship, okay? Because there's a lot of people who are in your position right now who could give you tips and tricks to be able to literally save you hundreds, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars as we speak. So whatever skill set that you're kind of lacking in, you have to be able to accept mentorship in that area. If you've never run a business before and you're just saying, the Lord called me to this area, and now you're saying, woohoo, I'm in business. Guess what? There's a lot of things you're about to learn and learn very, very quickly. Otherwise, you're going to crash and burn. So that's where you really need mentorship from somebody who's owned and operated a lot of businesses. And I'm not talking about somebody down the street who owns a family farm, that the same family farm that they've owned for 50 years. Nothing against those people, but they're not the people who can teach you how to buy and sell and operate businesses. They're just not, because they don't have the experience to do that. So that's where you would need mentorship. Okay. Again, if you are that person who is the regiment individual who is literally used to saying, in my work, I go from this task to this task to this task to this task. Now I'm on my own and I don't have somebody to tell me what to do. That's going to take some mentorship. So all of that is just leading you to the point where you can't do this alone. Even if you have a team of people behind you, you still need assistance and mentorship, regardless of where you are. Unless you're at the point where you're John Maxwell flying around the world, literally turning down kings and queens because you're so busy and so in demand. Putting that aside, for most of you, you're going to need something. And so how does that actually work? Biblically speaking, because somebody asked this on my broadcast a week or two ago about what happens when I'm at the point where I've got a mentor, and what do I do? Even before I get the mentor, what do I do? How do I prepare myself for that? And that really gave me a good thought process, because for most people, it's very, very difficult to accept mentorship because you have to put an ego aside. You really do. You have to understand because if you think about it, if you tell yourself, I know everything, even if you don't tell yourself, but your belief system is, I know everything, or I can figure it out, both of those are really the same coin. It's, I don't need help from anybody else. If you're in that point, you can't accept mentorship. And that's a problem, because you're going to need that wherever you go in this life, regardless of where you're going. So with that being said, just understand that before you even get to the place where you can accept mentorship, the Lord has to work on your heart. He has to work on that pride. So if you remove that pride, the Lord can really mightily use you. And that's fantastic, because I want everybody to be used mightily by God. I do. Regardless of what your industry is. Even if it's not finance like we are, like my wife and I are. No. You can still have a purpose and a plan for you. So once you're in the position where you can accept that mentorship, what do we do? Because if most of you have never viewed this from the mentor's point of view. Let's say for the moment that you are a very wealthy individual. And let's say, right now, let's just say, you know what? Right now I'm wealthy. And for whatever wealth amount that is, and you have a lot of people trying to follow you right now. Well, guess what? If you have 1,000 people right now who want to learn everything you own and everything you do, what do they do? Okay? How do you pick and choose which one? Well, you're going to figure out who's ready to go to work. Who's going to do what they say? Who's going to do what I say? Right? Because that's big too. It's not just what they say, it's what I say. Because if all they're doing is giving me grief about how they know this and they've got great ideas, guess what? Their ideas are worth their net worth, which is a lot less than yours now, because now you're wealthy. So what are they going to do? They're going to say, who's hungry, who's teachable, who's coachable, and who's going to do what I ask them to do. So if you're not prepared to do that, and I mean really, really, really prepared to do that, you're going to have some problems, because I'm going to show you a couple of guys from the Bible. A couple of guys. Elijah and Elisha are just guys. Yeah. Who did more for God in 5 minutes than I have in my entire life. Right? So here we go. Because backing up for a second, Elijah was a prophet in the Old Testament and First Kings, and also into Second Kings a little bit, who is a prophet of God who is in a very, very turbulent time, because there was a time of King Ahab, and King Ahab was one of the most evil kings in the Bible at that point. So what happened during that time? Well, when you're following God and you boldly pronounce God, well, guess what? The king's going to hate you. The prophets of those false gods are going to hate you, and they're going to do everything they can. So if you're not bold in your conviction and your faith in that period of time, you're going to fail. That's who Elijah was. And so this is a man that Literally, if you were a prophet of God at that time, you would have given your left leg to follow him. And that's exactly what Elisha did. So Elisha was one of the prophets that followed Elijah wholeheartedly. And here's what happened. Okay? So here is 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 19. And Elijah went from there, and he found Elisha, son of Shaphat, who is plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he was the 12th. And Elijah passed by him and threw his robe on him. And he left the oxen and ran after Elijah and said, "Please let me kiss my father and my mother, and then I will follow you." And he said to him, "Go, turn back, for what have I done to you?" And Elisha turned back from Elijah and took a yoke of oxen and slaughtered them and cooked their flesh, using the implements of the oxen, and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he rose up and followed Elijah and became his servant. So I want you to think about that for a second. As soon as the guy found him, okay, as soon as the guy found Elisha said, "I'm going to follow you, and I'm going to do what you want me to do, because I'm a prophet of God, you're a prophet of God, I need to learn from you, and I need to follow you wholeheartedly and just follow you and see how you're doing, because you're going to go to heaven soon, you're going to leave earth soon, and guess what? I'm not going to be there with you, okay? I've got to stay here and follow your business." So that's what he did. And so he literally, at the first moment of meeting him, said, "I'm going to kiss my father and mother goodbye, and then I'm going to follow you." All right? And so here's him later in 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 4 and 6. And this is at the very end of Elijah's life. And so here it is. And Elijah said to him, "Elisha, please remain here, for Yahweh has sent me on." And he said, "As Yahweh lives and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And they came into Jericho. And the sons of the prophet who were at Jericho came to Elisha and said to him, "Do you know that Yahweh is taking away your master from over you today?" And he said, "I also know, be silent." And then Elijah said to him, "Please remain here, for Yahweh has sent me onto the Jordan." And Elisha said, "As Yahweh lives and as your being lives, I do not leave you." And the two of them went on. So Elijah said, "Listen, I've got to go over here, and it's going to be a long, arduous journey, but the Lord has called me over here." And Elisha says, "I don't care where you're going. I'm following you. I'm following you." So I want you to understand the boldness that it took to be able to follow a mentor. That's the sort of boldness that's going to catch a mentor's attention. Because for most people, a mentor is really going to not going to give you a series of tasks per se, because it's very easy for a mentor to say, "Okay, go to this gas station over here, fill up my car, and come back in an hour." That's a task. Anybody can do that. But if he says, "Okay, I need you to go talk to 5 people tomorrow about our business that we're working in, and if you don't do it, guess what? I got to work with somebody else." Most people are not going to do that because that's out of your comfort zone. And for most people, mentorship means you've got to be able to leave your comfort zone and the way you've always done things. Because I want you to understand this very, very clearly. The way you have always done things is the reason why your life is where it is. Again, putting disaster scenarios that happen very, very suddenly aside. Putting that aside, for most people, if not all people, our lives are a culmination of our past choices. So the choices you make today are going to result in a different life that you have a month, 2, 3 from now. But the life you have right now at this moment is a result of the choices that you have made in the past. And if you didn't need mentorship, you'd already be where you want to be, which is exactly where the mentor is right now. That means you have to do his decisions today to get where he is in your future. Okay? Does that make sense? Do you understand? So if a mentor is doing XYZ to get him where he is today, and you want to get where he is today, then that means you have to do XYZ today. If the mentor got where he is by talking to 30 people a day about his business, then guess what you have to do? Talk to 30 people a day about your business. I don't care if you don't like it. I don't care if you don't know what to say. I don't care if it's uncomfortable. At least you're getting out and you're showing, hey, I'm at least putting in the effort to do what you wanted me to do. and doing it wholeheartedly to the best that I can. And if a mentor sees that somebody is doing everything they possibly can and doing the best that they can, but still not achieving the results that they want, that's someone the mentor can use. And that's something that you have to be able to do. You have to be able to do it. And you're going to get mentors when it comes to whatever opportunity that the Lord gives you to become a laborer. So that's what I'm going to do for you today, is doing this very short broadcast today to prepare you for that mentorship that's coming, because a lot of you need to be able to accept mentorship going forward. So that's one of the things I want to understand, is that you have to be able to do things, but not everything. Because the last thing I'm going to leave you with is this. If your mentor is a businessman, his business decisions are what got him to where he is today. But if that businessman is not a believer and he's been divorced 3 times, you might want to take a step back and say, okay, I can't follow this guy 100% wholeheartedly, but his business decisions that grew him, that helped him grow, I can follow those. Okay? So that's something that we also have to understand, because the Bible does tell us not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers. And if all you're doing is following somebody, no matter who it is, if all you're doing is following them for the rest of the earth, to the rest of the earth, and it's not asking any questions whatsoever, especially when it comes to their life that they have outside of whatever you're seeking, guess what? Because that is a little bit of a gray area. Because I'll be honest, in this scenario that I just read, everybody knew on planet Earth that Elijah was a prophet and did everything he could to be a prophet. And Elisha wanted to be a prophet, a good, bold prophet. So guess what he was going to do? Everything that Elijah did. All right? But for a lot of you, there's going to be times in your life where you're listening at an event and the guy on stage is very, very wealthy, but he's been divorced 2 or 3 times, or he hasn't seen his kids in 10 years. So if that's the case, you've got to understand and use just a smidgen of wisdom. I don't want to say use wisdom, because some of you may say, well, I want to do this. My mentor said to do this, but I'm not going to do that. Listen, for most cases, you're going to follow the mentor regardless. But if it's a mentor that's not really into, living the way you want to live, because for me personally, I haven't really found a mentor that has the family life that I currently have. They haven't. Just for whatever reason. I'm currently married with 4 kids. And of those 4 kids, 3 of them are very, very young. For most businessmen that I have found, they don't have that situation. Or if they did have that situation, they didn't grow a business until after the kids were older. We're not going to do that, because there's not a lot of time until Jesus returns. So I'm not just going to wait 5-10 years before the kids are older before I can go into business. Not going to happen. So that's something that I've sort of had to learn over the years. That's really what I'm referring to. Okay? So some of them, you can learn business skills, business skill sets, and you can apply those, even if they're a non-believer, apply those to you as a believer. So when it comes to the business skill set, you're going to focus on the business. Okay? You're not going to focus on the guy's marital life if the guy's marital life sucks. You're not going to focus on the guy's parental life if his parental life sucks. If he works literally 15 hours a day, you might want to take a step back and think, is that really the life that I want? What's going to happen to my marriage and all that? So that's something that we're going to have to think about. But at the same time, for most decisions, don't use that as an excuse to say, well, his marriage sucks, so I can't really listen to him about anything. Listen, if he got rich, he did it some way. And assuming he didn't work for the cartels, he did something without breaking a whole bunch of laws. He did it through private enterprise. And if he did it that way, then guess what? Okay, you've got something there for you. So that's what I want to leave you with today, is to prepare yourself to accept that mentorship when it does come. So when you do become a laborer, when you make the decision that I'm done living the way I am, when you make the decision to say, I'm going forward, I'm not looking back, and I'm going to achieve the financial abundance that God has called me to achieve. God has called me to achieve and be all that I really can be, and just be that life of abundance that the Lord calls me to be. Once you make that mental decision to do that, you're going to have to follow somebody. You are. So I'm preparing you right now before that happens. So when it does happen, the Lord's not waiting 3 years to remove some impurity that you can't even see. So that's what I want to leave you with today. Thank you so much for watching today. I know I'm on right now, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. So let's get together and you know, you're in my living room right now. You're in my office. So let's come in. A couple of guys asked a couple of questions last week about some books that I had. Fantastic. I'm happy to do that. Most of the books behind me I've actually read, believe it or not. I have. A lot of people haven't, but I certainly have. And most of them are really good. Some of them are university books. Some of them are study books for certifications that I did. But for the rest of them, they're all mostly really good books. So if you ever need help with that, I'm happy to do that because a lot of you are in very different areas of life that I am right now. But that's okay. I can certainly understand where you've been because most of the time I've probably been there. I have. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you on the next broadcast. Take care, everybody.